asking to pay for a trip I did not attend, I want to share a story that unfolded over the past few months. One that started with excitement and ended in heartbreak. It all began when I, a 25-year-old woman, was asked to be part of my close friend's bridal party for her upcoming wedding. Naturally, I was thrilled to support her during this special time. A few months ago, the maid of honor organized a bachelorette party in another country. From the very start, I knew I wouldn't be able to attend due to financial constraints. International travel, along with all the associated costs, simply wasn't in my budget. I was upfront about this, and everyone seemed to understand. Or so I thought. The bachelorette trip came and went, and shortly after the group returned to the States, the maid of honor sent a message in a group chat. But here's the twist. The message was directed specifically at those of us who hadn't attended the trip. She requested that we each contribute $300 to cover the bride's share of the expenses. I was completely blindsided. I had never agreed to pay for something I wasn't part of, and at no point did anyone mention that we would be expected to chip in for the bride's costs after the fact. If I had known this was the plan, I would have made it clear that I couldn't afford that either. I felt a mix of confusion and frustration. On one hand, I understood the desire to treat the bride, and had I been part of the trip, I might have considered contributing. But to ask for money from those who didn't attend felt unfair and, frankly, manipulative. I hesitated to respond to the message. I didn't want to create any drama, but I also felt strongly that I shouldn't have to pay for something I didn't participate in, especially when I had been honest about my financial situation from the beginning. As I mulled over my options, I received some supportive comments from others. They encouraged me to clarify the misunderstanding and to ask how much those who did attend were contributing. After all, $300 is a significant amount, and it seemed unreasonable for those of us who didn't go to shoulder any of that cost. Fast forward 3 months, and I decided to take a step back from being a bridesmaid altogether. I texted the bride to explain that, due to my financial issues, I could no longer fulfill that role, but still wanted to be there for her as a guest. I know that texting might not have been the best way to handle it, but I struggle with confrontation and social anxiety, so it felt safer to communicate this way. Unfortunately, this decision did not go over well. The bride expressed that she was hurt by my choice and felt that she deserved more than just a text message. In hindsight, I realized that perhaps I should have called her instead. I attempted to reach out a few more times, but she told me she didn't have time for this drama, which I interpreted as her needing space. So I respected that. As the bridal shower approached, I chose not to attend since we hadn't spoken since I stepped back from the bridal party. The situation took another turn when I learned that the bride had invited nearly everyone I knew to the wedding. My mom, my siblings, my cousins, but I didn't receive an invitation. I felt like I was being ghosted, and it stung. Reflecting on everything, I realized that the only thing I might need to apologize for was how I withdrew from the bridal party. But my reasons were valid, and I didn't feel like I should have to beg for someone's friendship. It saddened me to think that a 20-year friendship could be thrown away over this situation. So here I am, sharing my experience with you all, not necessarily looking for advice, but simply needing to express my feelings. It's a tough lesson in communication and expectations, and I hope that by sharing, I can find some solace in this unexpected turn of events. I want to share a story that has been weighing heavily on my heart. It revolves around a wedding, a friendship, and a series of misunderstandings that spiraled out of control. It all started when I was asked to be a bridesmaid for my close friend's wedding. I was excited and eager to support her, but then things took a turn. The maid of honor informed us that we would be renting a large house for the bridal shower, and we were expected to set up for 3 days. To make matters more complicated, we were told we needed to split the costs equally to ensure everything worked out perfectly for the bride. This message came just a day after I had expressed my willingness to contribute $100 towards the bachelorette party. But I simply couldn't stretch my budget to $300. It felt a bit passive-aggressive to me, and I started to feel overwhelmed by the financial pressure. As I looked over the expenses, I realized that the house and decorations alone would already set us back $2,000, and that didn't even include food, drinks, or party favors. I decided to reach out to the maid of honor to express my concerns. I explained that I wasn't sure if the bride was aware of the financial burden we were being asked to shoulder, and I ultimately made the tough decision to pull out of the bridal party. I sent my message back in July, while the wedding was scheduled for November. What hurt even more was learning that another bridesmaid had also pulled out for financial reasons, but she was treated differently. She didn't contribute anything for the bachelorette party, yet the bride was understanding and even invited her to be part of the wedding day without any financial obligations. Meanwhile, I felt slighted because I had contributed $100, which the bride dismissed as basically nothing. When I asked about how the other bridesmaid communicated her decision, I learned that she had sent a text and then received a call from the bride, who was kind and accommodating. I couldn't help but wonder why I was being treated so differently. My family had mixed feelings about the situation. My mother advised me to reconsider my friendship with the bride if she was going to ghost me after I expressed my concerns. My sisters, who had developed their own relationships with the bride, were still considering attending the wedding, which made me feel even more isolated. My cousin, who felt I was being treated unfairly, decided not to go. The bride later mentioned that it was easy for me to step back from being a bridesmaid, and therefore easy for her to drop me as a friend. But it wasn't easy for me at all. I had agonized over sending that text, and once I realized how it affected her, I tried to reach out again. I felt like I deserved a chance to explain myself and apologize, especially since we had been friends for so long without any major issues. As I reflected on our friendship, I recalled a time when the bride had a falling out with her own sister, which lasted 4 years. It made me wonder if this pattern of cutting people off was something I should have anticipated. In the midst of all this, I couldn't shake the feeling that the bride might not have fully understood the situation. I had clearly communicated the financial pressures we were facing, but perhaps she was only hearing what she wanted to hear. Despite my attempts to mend things, I felt increasingly hurt by the way I was being treated. It seemed unfair that I was being held to a different standard than the other bridesmaid who had also pulled out. I had tried to contribute, and yet my efforts were dismissed. As I navigated these emotions, I couldn't help but question whether my decision to send that text was so damaging that it warranted being cut off entirely. Was it wrong for me to expect a chance to apologize and explain my side? In the end, I realized that friendships can be fragile, especially when financial pressures and misunderstandings come into play. I hope that by sharing my experience, others can learn the importance of open communication and understanding in their relationships, especially during significant life events like weddings. I've always been someone who values friendships deeply, especially those that have stood the test of time. Recently, I found myself in a situation that really challenged that belief. It all started when my close friend announced her wedding. I was thrilled for her and honored when she asked me to be a bridesmaid. However, as the wedding planning progressed, I began to feel the weight of the financial expectations that came with it. You see, my family has always been on the lower end of the financial spectrum. We've had to hustle our entire lives, so I've learned to be conscious about spending. Suddenly, I was faced with the pressure to go big or go home. It felt like a lot to ask, especially given my financial situation. I wanted to support my friend, but I also had to take care of myself. As the wedding date approached, I found myself in a tough spot. I knew I wouldn't be able to afford the expenses associated with being a bridesmaid. I wrestled with the idea of reaching out to her to explain my situation, hoping she would understand. After all, if we were as close as I thought we were, wouldn't she at least hear me out? I wanted to apologize for not being able to fulfill the role she envisioned for me, but instead of reaching out, I hesitated. I didn't want to ruin her special moment or make her feel bad about her choices. So, I decided to step back and let things unfold naturally. However, what happened next left me feeling ghosted. I didn't receive an invitation to the wedding, and it felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't help but wonder if my absence from the bridal party had caused her to cut ties entirely. Navigating this situation has been challenging, especially since we share the same group of friends. I know I will run into her eventually, and I'm unsure how to handle it. I think I would have felt less hurt if she had confronted me directly or even told me I was uninvited. Instead, the silence left me with no closure, just a lingering sense of confusion. As I reflect on this experience, I realize how complex friendships can be, especially when money and expectations are involved. It's a tough lesson in communication and understanding, and I hope to find a way to address this with her in the future. After all, true friendship should be able to withstand the ups and downs, even when finances get in the way.